Well, welcome everybody. We're going to talk through a few of the new features of the new map here and take questions and have a good time over the next, say, 45 minutes or so. Anyway, we're going to start with a little encounter selection on an open map here. There's no fog or anything going on here, but what I do have is 3 of the monsters are hidden. So you'll see these have no numbers and are kind of grayed out, these tokens. That's because they're hidden. And we've already rolled initiative here, so Frug, Darren's character, is up first. We're going to start the turn order, see his character gets highlighted, and now he's going to do his thing. So.
All right. Let's give this a quick try here. So Frog is very prone to doing fire stuff, so he's going to fling out a fireball.
All right, so he's encompassed these 2 spiders that you can see and the drow mage back here. And what he doesn't know is there's another one there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and upgrade his token to actually be an image, so that next time he casts it, he'll actually get that image. And it's as easy as that. He could have done it himself. I swapped it in and that sort of stuff. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to select what monsters are targeted by it. And you can see it selects even the invisible one, and he doesn't know about it. Go ahead and roll the damage there, Darren. And then, okay, they get a dex save. So all the selected creatures are now going to make a dex save. So we can dex save versus the damage. Bang. There we go. All 4 saves were rolled, and it looks like a few of the monsters were damaged. And the drow mage was particularly damaged. So it looks like we've got all 3 spiders saved.
Yeah.
And the mage didn't. So
yeah, and for folks who are watching, if you haven't used it before, what Hal just did by clicking that 32/16, not only does it do the roll, check the saves, automatically applies the damage, and as Hal mentioned, the little red circle around the drow, you can see that it automatically took that damage. And that fireball image, I just wanted to call out, Hal, because I've gotten that question on the server a fair amount. People will go, well, wait, how do I get spell tokens that match up with my images? So I don't know if either of you want to just share really briefly how you can do that to kind of spice up the map.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can reference when you create an image token, like a map token, you can reference any spell as a keyword, and it will automatically kind of match what's going on with that spell. So if I said I want a particular image for hypnotic pattern, for example, right, I would just put hypnotic pattern in the keywords, right, and it would actually go find that image and suggest it as a substitution for that. So the reason it found sample fireball here when I did the change image, when I went here, the reason it found it is because there's a tag on that image that says it's fireball image, right, and that sort of stuff. So you can just tag your images with the spells they're for, and it'll automatically find it. And then now with the new map, the first time you use this new image, it attaches it to that spell for that spellcaster, and the next time Frog casts Fireball, he'll actually get the image automatically. He won't get the area of effect, the default image for the area of effect. He'll get the Fireball image. So effectively, after you've cast each spell once and substituted your image, it'll automatically continue to use your images from there on. So.
The other thing you can do is, if you don't have the image tagged, if you click the edit here, you can actually go and pick from any image that you already have.
Absolutely. So I can go select an image here and go pick an image and literally pick any image I've got, right? So any spell token I've got, I can choose, and if I didn't have it tagged as a spell token, I could still change it and go select literally any image I want. So I could select any map token or whatever else I wanted from there. So, yeah. So that's how that works.
The other thing that's maybe worth pointing out, Hal, is the new feature for damage undo.
Yeah. So the other thing I could do is say, okay, well, let's assume this mage, for whatever reason, has resistance to that damage, and the auto thing didn't automatically match up resistances, doesn't. So I want to go, okay, I'm going to subtract that, and then I'm just going to go to the mage and say, okay, take half damage, right? Because he failed to save, but he still takes half damage. So it healed him the 32. It reversed, didn't undo, and then basically applied half damage. I just applied it manually, right there. So all right. So now what happens when I advance the turn? Before a spell token, when you put it on the map, you had to clean it up yourself, do all this sort of stuff. Because the spell's an instant, it knows the effect is over as soon as Rogue's turn's over. So as soon as I advance the turn, that image is going to disappear and clean up your map. Now you're ready to move on to the next turn. The Salt Spider's turn is next. So I can literally click on the Salt Spider here, and you can say I've got 2 attacks, a barbed leg attack and a bite, both of which are close range attacks. Right, so I need to move, right? So I'm going to move my creature, and the measure tool that's always been a part of it is there. That kind of stuff. His speed is only 30 feet, right? So he can't actually reach a target. So he's going to get to there and be done. Now he could dash, right? That's a possibility, but in this case, there's no advantage to it because he can't really attack once he gets there. So he's not going to attack, gonna dash here. So next up selected is my invisible creature here. So I can go to the token, make it visible, right? I could do that directly from the tracker or from a variety of other locations, but now one of the new menu options is directly go unhide it, right? And then I can also advance this token 30 feet toward a target, and that turn is done. And when I advance to Scry's turn, now it's Scry's turn, and this is Nick's character, so he can decide what he's going to do with this particular character.
So I made a level 5 character, so he might not be as impressive as Frug, but he is a Colossus Slayer, which means that he has the ability to deal an extra 1d8 damage to a creature that's below its hit point maximum. And I don't think they can see my screen right now, but when I'm looking down at my conditions and effects tab, I can click to toggle on my Colossus Slayer.
You can show that, Hal.
Yeah.
So
let me show his character sheet here.
Oh yeah, there you go. There's Colossus
I'll show you
Slayer.
where the feature is here, so you can see Colossus Slayer. He's just toggling it on, and you can see it automatically changes the damage for his weapons to be 2 d8s rather than 1, or a d6 plus a d8 in the case of the short sword.
So I think what I'll do is, however, I think I'm a little bit nervous about all these creatures, and I do want to show off, a little bit more. I didn't actually demo this, so let me try to cast Fog Cloud and see what that looks like. So if I go ahead and hit cast, and I'm going to cast it at first level, there it goes, automatically populated on the map. And I want to give Frug and I a little bit of cover from that mage. So I'm going to go ahead. It's got a range of 120 feet. And as you can see, it will show on the screen how far you're moving it and how far the range is. And I want to actually get that drow really in the fog. So he's going to have trouble casting spells at us. And then I think as my bonus action, I'm going to cast Hunter's Mark. And let's see, how would I go about, I clicked cast in the chat, if I wanted to go ahead and target, let's say, number 2 with my Hunter's Mark.
You could do that and just tell your GM that's the thing you're doing. Or you could use your target icon. So the target icon on your when you click on your token, you get a little target icon. So let me show what that looks like on my side here.
Yeah, go for it.
I can click it here, and I just select the target icon, and then I can drag that to the creature. Yep. And that's precisely what I'm targeting right there, right? And so then I can go, okay, well, on my side, I'll select that creature, and I'm going to go ahead and apply the condition Hunter's Mark, right? And so I applied it.
And there it goes.
That condition is now applied to that creature.
Great. And then I'll move back to this log and get a better position.
There you go. All right. So anyway, that's the basic flow of combat with spell tokens, additional areas of effect. You can select things. The big difference from the old map control is that when you click something, it's selected, right? So the reality is I click on the map is now selected. I've got all these options for adding monsters or adding a shape to the map. If I want, I can do actions on the characters just like I could before to huddle the monsters, huddle the characters. That's useful if you're adding new things to the sheet, or I could select, if I wanted to do something to all the monsters, I could select them all. So this is a unique thing now. You can select all the monsters, and if I wanted to move them all, I could move them all as a group here by selecting them. and that sort of stuff. So like, I mean, your target is actually providing a useful reference for me where he originally was, right? So there's that, and then I can do the same by selecting the characters. I can also, for any character, select a target here and measure. So same as you can for a player character, I can select the target and measure what the distance is to a character. Many people, in the previous iteration, like measuring how far something was from their character, they'd have to click somewhere near their character. If there was a spell token down like this one, then you couldn't click near your character because you'd select the token and all that sort of stuff. Well, now you can just select your token, select the target icon, put your target up, and drag it anywhere you want. We also provide a set of individual measuring rings here, so you can say for common distances like 30 feet, you could say, okay, what are all the things within 30 feet of me, right? And so that ring shows up to show you what's within 30 feet of you, right? And it'll go away the next time you select your token, right?
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And the other thing to point out too is in the same way that Hal talked about how that fireball went away automatically, but if he goes to the next turn, that fog cloud will stay there because
it's a duration spell. It stays, right?
Yeah.
So it's the token manager connected to spells. It's connected to the spell. So as long as that spell is active, it'll stay. And let's say for some reason, later in the combat, Scry was attacked and lost concentration on the spell because this is a spell that requires concentration, right? So he loses concentration on it as soon as
oops, I hit the wrong one. Yep.
No. Yep. As soon as he ends it, right, what happens is then the spell token goes away and gets cleaned up as well, right? So ending the spell will cause the token to be removed as well. So they're connected to each other in that way.
Looks like Jinx in chat had a question. Can you do that measure ring on a target?
On a target.
And I believe so. So if I want to click on an enemy, could I see what's a 15-foot around that?
Well, as a GM I can, but as a player I don't think you can. I don't think you can select that token and do that. So as a GM you can definitely do that, right? And say, okay, what's within 15 feet of that thing? So if you're like had an effect like Ice Knife or something where it's like it damages the number of creatures within certain range of it, you could definitely do that, right? Mm-hmm. And say what's within 15 feet of it.
Yep. And as you can see, I'm doing my little arrows showing up on Hal's screen. You can, as a player, still click on any of the targets, and I could see, all right, this one's 18. If I want to maybe get really technical with it and go to the edge of it, maybe it would make it, but it's going to depend on the GM.
Yep. That's going to depend on how generous your GM is for what's within 15 feet.
Yeah. Yeah. And it looks like Fett has a question about if I huddle a character and hit select all characters and move it, it moves the monsters as well. Is that supposed to happen?
That might be a bug. So let's try it. So let's huddle the characters. Hang on. Let's huddle the characters. Huddle characters. Okay. And then they're all selected right now.
Yep. Okay. Now I saw how when you clicked, there was an option to hit select all monsters. So I'm wondering, Fett, is it possible that you clicked huddle, or you clicked select all monsters, not select all creatures, or characters?
Well, let's try it again. Let's huddle the characters.
Yep.
And then no, I'm not.
And then I think if you separately click on the map, Hal, you open up there was a select all option under the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm wondering if maybe he clicked select. Okay, so yeah, if you click select all characters.
Yep, select all characters. Yeah.
And yeah, so that could be a bug, Fett. I'm not sure. It doesn't seem like that's the normal behavior because we're not replicating it here.
Yep.
And as Darren mentioned, if any of those monsters are friends, which I believe would include animal companions or creature companions.
Then they do move with, they move as a part of the character, as part of the group, the party, if you will. Yep.
Which is maybe a good thing to point out, right? Which is there are a lot of changes here, and we've spent a lot of time trying to get all the bugs out, but with this many changes, there's almost guaranteed to be some things that have slipped through. So let us know. We're trying to get these fixed as quickly as possible, and that's really helpful, not just to us, but to other people to get things fixed for them as well.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
So examples in the last few days, right? Despite an extensive amount of beta feedback, right? When originally when you click on something and add a token to the map, add an image to the map, right? It became a background image, right? Which made it hard to select and that sort of stuff. Now we changed the behavior to make it a foreground image, so it's a lot easier to select and move and do all those sorts of things. So that was a change that came from feedback immediately after release. Right. Another thing, when Darren and I were prepping for this afternoon, the next demo we're about to do, which is about attaching your tokens to a ship and moving the ship, worked great for the player's characters and that kind of stuff. But when I set up an encounter with monsters on a ship that I wanted to move, as soon as I started the encounter, they were detached from the boat. So it was a bug, right?
Yeah.
He fixed it this afternoon, and the new version's already deployed. You'll see in a second that it works just fine. So.
Yeah. I think one thing that might be helpful, Hal, too, is to give, because we've kind of been talking about this from both the GM and the player perspective, but if I'm a player, it might be interesting for you to click on either myself or Frug and show everyone what the different icons do underneath our character. So the little bullseye, the HP, the fist. And
right, yeah. So you've got the measure tool, same as any other creature here. So the measuring distance and that kind of stuff. On the hit points, here you can, it still saves the most recent amounts of damage and that kind of stuff. The other thing we can show here, let me go ahead and have one of these creatures make an attack. So I'm doing this kind of out of turn, but let's just go ahead and have one of them move up here and attack Frug, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna show it, and it's gonna fight, and it critted.
Oh no!
most fortunate, right? That it critted, right? Yes. So I'll roll damage. Roll the critical for it, right? And it's about to get that much damage. Now, if we click on Frug's token, you'll see the same thing here that we would see on his character sheet. Is because it's not his turn and damage has been rolled by another creature, he gets the option to apply full or half damage directly from here. We basically intuit that one of the things that you might want to do is apply the most recent damage roll to your character, right? So we could apply full or half damage here. So if we could do full damage, all right, Frug just took 19 points of damage from that monster. And now, when it comes to be Frug's turn, let me back up to Scry's turn here just to make it easy. If we click there, you'll see, okay, well, he's got his longbow equipped, so his most common action here is going to be to use his longbow, right? And so the most common action is highlighted here below. So he just clicks on his token, he can do it from there. So he doesn't have to scroll down to see or do anything else. He can just use his longbow directly from there, roll damage directly from there, and done. So he doesn't know where the longbow is on his character sheet. It's equipped. He can do it directly from here.
And now
It also does that for cantrips and other sort of common things you might use. So equipped weapons and cantrips are the most common things that show up when it's your turn.
Yes. Yeah, this was one of the big things that we were trying to change with the new map control. Is previously we had a giant menu that would pop up, and we just were running out of space to add new things. Mm-hmm. So that was part of the goal of having this little toolbar here, is to open up so that we can add a lot more features without making the user interface having a 50 option long menu. But the other thing we also found in usability testing was there were just some things that were slower because you had to do more clicks. And that was why we added these little quick links in underneath, was to try to handle these cases where, hey, you just want the main path to go really, really quickly through there and get the right options there.
Yep. And I think it's also probably worth pointing out, this is not new to Shard, but I'm looking at my screen and looking at Hal's screen. The damage that his spider rolled, I could not see. So when if I clicked on my character, there was not an option to deal 16 or whatever the two differences were. Only the GM could do that. So you can, if you're a GM that likes to keep those things hidden from their players. If you're okay with players seeing those, and it also allows you to free up a little bit of the clerical side of things then I would have been able to click that damage to apply it to myself. But instead, it showed up in my chat, Frug took 19 damage from the GM. So I got to see it after the fact.
Right.
Which, again, different folks are going to approach it differently. But I know for me personally in my home games, if I have 6 players, I don't want to have to manage their hit points. So I let them see the rolls, and I'll say, all right, go ahead and take, you take that damage, and they know to do so.
Right. For anybody that hasn't discovered it before, here's where you make that decision. You can decide to hide all your rolls. That hides everything. You can hide the details, which basically only shows the result of the roll rather than all the details about who was rolling and all that sort of stuff. Or you can show all roll details, in which case it'll show everything to the players. It'll show you who rolled, name of the creature that rolled, or the type of the creature that rolled, all that sort of thing. So
the other thing that you get with hide details is you can see some of the rolls that the game master makes, but not necessarily what the end result is. So I rolled a d20, but you don't know what the bonus was that came from the monster. Mm-hmm. So you get a little bit of that effect of playing live where you see what the game master is rolling, but the final outcome isn't clear because the game master has control of what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
We did get a question or a suggestion from Fryer in chat. He said we might want to show how the measure to target works.
Right. So here, clicking on a player character and selecting the target, right? This is
yep.
Measure to target, and see this creature's 42 feet away from Scry.
Yep.
Right.
And that's a quick way of letting the GM know I'm attacking this one, right? So in the
right.
pre map update, your only way of doing that was to ping on the map, right? But if your GM looked away for a minute and looked back and said, wait, which one? And you might be able to say the number, but this really unequivocally lets you say, no, this is the one I'm attacking.
Right.
And it's optional. That's the nice thing. You don't have to use this. It's some people are going to really like it, and others are going to go, no, I'm going to shoot the one over there by the log.
Right, and the other thing is, if I know it's Scry's turn, and for whatever reason I don't immediately visually pick up this token, so I click off of it. He's moved his token there. I don't visually pick up that it's there. I can literally go here to the chat on his damage roll and say, which creature is he targeting?
Yep.
Bang, and there it's selected the creature, and I can directly apply the damage from here. So I can either apply it over here, or I can apply it right here. So I can select full or half right there. So I can automatically, if he's using that little target icon, I know exactly who he's targeting, right? And that kind of stuff. Even if I was, like Nick said, busy doing something else while he was picking his target, right, and didn't pick up that he'd moved that token over there, right? I can use this little feature in the chat to pick that up, and that's again a new thing that came in with the target feature and the new map here.
And this is also something that we've had a little bit of discussion about the difference between, hey, targeting is selecting a monster versus picking a spot. And in general, we've tried to err in the way of giving the game master control. So if a creature is invisible or it isn't quite clear, you can still say, I want to aim here in order to get it. And then the game master can decide if, it was close enough or not, and how it wants to get interpreted.
Yep. This literally happened to me in Baldur's Gate 3 last night when I was trying to find an invisible monster, and there was no GM to be benevolent to me, so I was just firing ice knives all over the room. Trying to find it. We did get a question. This actually came up prior to the stream. It was someone on the server that said, I've had issues attaching tokens, such as attaching darkness to a player so that when they move, it moves with them. So could we maybe show a little demonstration of what?
Real quick, before we change, Hal, let's do the simple one here first.
Yeah.
Which is, I've got a spell on Frog, which is Spirit Guardians. So this is, you can see, has the custom token already set up. And because it knows that this is centered on the self, it automatically does that attachment. So that when I move, it moves that Spirit Guardians with me on top of that.
Yep, and each time I hit that token, it selects everything that's in the area.
Yeah.
And can you show clicking the area as well?
Yep, so click in there.
Yep, and you can see the fist.
Yep.
So if you want to know how much damage that's doing, you can do that. And players can do that as well to roll the damage directly from the area of effect.
Yep.
And that will move with you, but there is an ability, an option to detach an aura, which I know would not matter with Spirit Guardians, but say you cast light and you wanted to cast light on, let's just pretend on your dagger, and you want to throw your dagger across. There is an option, I believe I've seen it, right? When you can click on your character, and maybe it's under the
eye.
info, the eye is
and
detached.
you should detach it.
Yes.
And then
So
I
not
move
that
it.
you necessarily would need to, but that's one of those little things I discovered when we were beta testing that I was like, oh, that's kind of neat for if it's an aura that does need to move.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I reattached it, and away we go.
Yep.
So
And
the attachments are also they can be kind of one way or two way, right? So right by default, a spell is attached to the caster, but the caster is not attached to the spell. So like it would do this, and like even without detaching, I can actually move the spell effect without moving Frug, right? So for the light example, right, I can move it without. But if I move Frug, it moves the thing, and even if I move Frug while it's over there, it's still attached to him, right?
This will be really show up well with your queued up demonstration. Hal.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so
You want
let's
to finish this encounter?
Sure, we can finish this encounter. What do you want to show next?
No, I'm saying if you finish, then you'll lose the other monsters here, and we can
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. All right, so let's finish, clean up, and then we're going to move on down the river. So they were in this swampy area. We're going to move on a little further down the river, and I'm moving to a new map here. So I'm going to pick a new map, my river base grid. I've got a new encounter set up here, so I'm going to start this ship's encounter just by clicking on the item. And this is what we were talking about earlier, right? I've preset two ships, one for the monsters, one for the characters. Got the monsters set up over here, a bunch of pirates, and that sort of stuff. And I'm going to huddle the characters here. So I'm going to go ahead and huddle the characters and put them on the ship, right? And then if I select the ship, okay, first of all, I'm going to attach the characters while I've got them grouped here. I had them grouped. I was supposed to do that the easy way, but now I'll just regroup them and sort of.
Oh, they're still attached from earlier. Do a detach first.
What are they attached to?
The previous version of the ship.
Okay. All right, so I'll click them and.
Yeah, just detach and reattach.
Right, and then I'll attach them.
Now, this is important. When you do attach, it's going to put you into a mode where you do it, and then you hover over the thing that you want to attach them to.
And click it.
And that can work for boats or horses or whatever the token is.
Right. So now this is a cool thing, right? Now that they're attached to the ship, right? Let me spin it. Are you seeing Frug spin around? Will look like he's spinning around Scribe because his position on the ship is being maintained.
Yep. And if you drag the ship.
Yeah, if I move the ship, the tokens move with it.
But you can still move the tokens on the ship.
Yeah. One of the big improvements we wanted to make and that kind of stuff. But I can move the character without, if the ship's not, when the ships move, because they're attached to the ship, they move. But they can move independently of the ship. So they can move around on the deck again. So again, the attachment is one way here. They are attached to the ship, right? Meaning when the ship moves, they move. But the ship is not attached to them, meaning that you can move their tokens independently of the ship. So.
Yep.
There you go. All right. So
why don't you show the rotate with the other one? Because with all the monsters, it looks cooler.
Yeah, there you go. Show the rotation of the tokens and that sort of stuff. And so they, and in this case, we're showing them attached to a ship. They could just as easily be a formation attached to a leader, right? So they could attach. I could attach the 4 pirates here to their target leader, and every time I move the leader, the 4 pirates move with it. Right?
Yeah, and to that point, Hal, I want to share one of the coolest ideas that I've seen that came out of the Discord server after this happened. Someone said, I can finally do the boss monster I've always wanted to do that has different parts, different targetable, almost like they essentially want to run a Monster Hunter campaign where you can target the dragon's head or its wings or its,
Right.
and they actually could make them as separate tokens if they wanted to with their
Yep.
own hit points and attach them. And then
Yeah.
as they move it around, I just thought that was a really cool idea that I hadn't thought about until that person mentioned it. And they were like, this was, they couldn't, the way they had to do it before, it was a really messy kind of situation. And now it worked great.
Right. Right. So, those of you that are familiar with the previous map, you can imagine, okay, now, the long menu used to pop up when you plop on a token. Now we're going to add attach and detach to that list. And now we're going to add, all the targeting behavior. And then we're going to add the target and, give me a target ring of 30 feet. Like that menu was just going to get way too big, right? So we had to do something to change the UI paradigm. And the way to do that was to have you be able to select the token and then take the action and group those actions in logical groups under the icon, so that it didn't become one massive list that would kind of, even on a PC, became too long to see or manipulate.
Yeah.
I don't know where you were.
Yep.
So, all right, I think we had one other question.
We had a question. This is actually more related to like the building of maps. I think it says, how do we adjust fog areas created on the old
that's
map?
something that did change here. So let me switch to a map where I can demonstrate that. So this is one of the older maps out of Empire of the Ghouls, the catacombs here from this sort of stuff. So if I go into fog build mode here, so if I wanted to adjust the tool, if I want to go into build fog regions, right? Before, what would happen is every one of these things, all the vertices on all of these things were shown, right? And you had a map that was just filled with red dots, right? And so it was obvious how to select one because they were all visible. So now the big difference is, okay, you just go to the region you want, click it, the red dots, vertices for that one become visible, and then I can adjust it. So if I want to move that one, I can move that one, right? And that kind of stuff. If I want to delete this region, I can delete this region, and so on. And so the same applies to any of these things. So you can imagine if they were all selected, like what that would look like, right? And that's the way it used to look before. So this was a change in behavior we made, not necessarily related to the new map control, just to kind of clean up some behavior as a part of what we were doing, right? So making it sort of...
You can see another issue on this, Hal. I don't know if you noticed that not all the lines are straight and lined up.
Right.
You want to show the snapping behavior?
Sure, let's do that. So let's you can see these are kind of jaunty, right, in terms of the way they work. So if I start to move this one, you can see it snapping to a grid here, right? And so if I snap that, now it snaps straight, right?
Well, it's snapping to the other pins.
Right. So it's snapping to the pin, not to the grid. So it's snapping to a location that's a vertex with these two pins, right? The two pins on either side of it, right?
And it tries to snap to a perfect 90-degree.
Yep.
That's great. That's going to really help the OCD part of me whenever I used to make these polygons and it was not quite.
Well,
right.
It's
Exactly.
also useful for snapping the corners between the different fog regions.
Yeah.
Because if you get close, that used to be another one of the areas, as you would have these little slivers of space that would end up because the edges weren't quite lined up, and they were hard to line up because you couldn't always select the right one in the right region and that type of stuff.
So how does that work with a non-geometric, like the tunnel to the left, right? That's not going to necessarily...
You can still drag it to be
Okay.
non-conforming. It's just if you get near where it would be at 90 degrees, it's going to try to make it 90 degrees.
That's
so I can
cool.
still do it in a way that's not. I get,
like that.
It's moving it in, effectively moving the token in like 1 foot increments to try to get it to 90, right? On a micro grid, if you will.
Do you think, Hal, because I know we're going to record this video and post it elsewhere, could you show, just not to put you on the spot, like could we pull up a new map that doesn't have any fog and just show someone a very simple room, like a square room or a cave? If I'm a brand new GM and I want to sit down and go, all right, well, how do I preset fog, right?
The Elven Fortress was a good one, Hal, because it didn't have any.
Okay, let's try that. Yeah, that's right. That's one of the ones we pulled up earlier. This
the far right.
Yeah, Elven Fortress here. Yeah, this doesn't have any fog regions. Now it's a little complicated because it's circles and that sort of stuff, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and define a fog region for this one of these circles, right? So it's still in region build mode. So I'm basically just going to go into the fog to build fog regions, right? Select my polygon tool and go boom, boom.
And now, while Hal's doing this, if you were a GM at home, you wouldn't want to do this in your campaign if you knew your players were going to be able to poke around and see what you were doing.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you can
do
build
this
these fog
offline
regions
in a book or something, right?
You can do it in a book
advance.
or from exactly, and you would build these out, and then you'd fog the map, and then when your players were to join, you could click as they enter each fog region, and you could click to unfog them. So.
When I close the circle here, okay, now all
Yep.
the dots become visible. The vertexes I created.
Oop.
I started a new one rather than selecting one, so let's get out of the polygon tool here, select this one. And I can move this out if I want, right?
Yeah, perfect. Great.
And the tighter I get, the more control I have of doing things.
Yeah, so obviously, folks can imagine how tedious this could be. Like, imagine doing this for a labyrinth, which I've done once. And sometimes it's going to be up to you, the DM. Now, this is what you will find this in most products in our marketplace. Most of our publishers, they're going to build in the fog regions, or our import folks will do that. But if you're running a quick little pickup, at a tavern that your players are just going to be walking into, and you can unfog it using the fog brush. You can use you can drag like a little square. So it's totally optional. Again, it's really just another one of those kind of quality of life things, because it allows you to kind of quickly,
right,
do what you need to do.
Oh, there's one little feature here that I know some people have been asking for. Hal, can you show how you can change the density of the fog for the game master?
Sure. So here on the same tool I had build fog regions, I can say right now I've got it set to 25%, which just makes it slightly obscured. I change it to 50, you can see the map is a little more obscured. 75, it's really obscured, right? So you can really tell which versions are like. So if I went here and reveal this one, for example, what am I doing here? Why is the region not coming up for reveal here? Oh, I'm in the wrong tool or something. No, I'm in the right tool.
Oh, the eye.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. There we go. So we reveal the region, right? And you can really tell the difference between the stuff that's seen and the stuff that's seen at 75%. 100%, you're hiding the map even from yourself. Don't necessarily recommend that, but
sometimes it's useful to get an idea of what your players are seeing in a really quick fashion.
Yeah, exactly. But that's,
and then also there's some, I don't think we have any on Shard, but there are definitely one-person adventures that I've seen folks release in the past where you play just on your own. So maybe in those cases you would want it to be totally
fair. No, we've we don't have any official ones in the marketplace yet, all right, for solo adventures and that kind of stuff. But I know a few of our power users that actually do use it in that way.
Yeah.
And it's on my to-do list to go figure out what tweaks we need to make things to make that even more useful for folks, right?
Yeah.
Like setting the fog to 100%, or making some other adjustments to make it even more useful. So
yeah.
So
great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I know that's kind of covered all the questions we have, but I didn't know, do you and either if there's any other features or thing you want to show, but otherwise I think it would maybe be great to kind of hear from you two kind of like how you guys got to this point, like what, I know we've been talking about this map upgrade for a while now, and it was something that folks were really excited about, and then we had Black Flag come along, and so I guess kind of how you guys got to arrive at this point of the features you did select, or maybe the ones you didn't, and kind of
start with, right, we knew we had to get back to feature parity to the previous maps, and what you don't necessarily know about the previous maps is there were actually multiple controls. Like the showing the player view of the map was a different control than the GM's view of the map, right? Which made it really a pain in the butt from code maintenance point of view. Now it's all one set of plumbing. The GM is just seeing a slightly different view of the same control that the players see. There were actually, I think, 3 controls before, right, Darren? There were
at least 3 different variations.
And that sort of stuff. So, like, part of the goal was just to simplify the code, because the map controls were literally the oldest thing we did. It was the very first thing we did back in fall of 2018 or something, right? They were literally that old. right? And that sort of stuff. So there was some code maintenance. Making the performance better was obviously a goal, and getting back to feature parity, and then adding a few things like being able to attach tokens and automatically removing areas of effect and that kind of stuff. The initial wave of things, but we've already got like a whole list of things that we're like, okay, now that we have the new control in place and we've got the new model in place, here are some other things we want to do. So we've got a list of things we're going to continue to do in this space, and Darren's going to talk about that shortly. But like, yeah, I mean, effectively, we're constantly trying to listen to feedback from the community and say, okay, what are the most impactful things we could add? So, Black Flag was a big one, working with our biggest publishing partner, and that sort of stuff. We've had requests for other game systems that we're also evaluating, talking to those publishers and trying to figure out when it makes sense to implement some of the additional game systems. I'm not going to talk about that now because I'll almost certainly pick one that like people are excited about, and it'll be a while before it gets implemented because of the publisher or because of us, one or the other, working with it. But we're definitely talking about 3 or 4 different game systems right now that could potentially be implemented as new game systems.
That are all 5e-ish.
Yeah, 3 of the 4 are 5e-ish. One is a complete departure, but like that one would be a much bigger undertaking, right? Because we'd literally have to start from scratch on the character sheet to do that one.
Yeah. I know we had some requests over the last week for Daggerheart, and I was like, I don't want folks to get their hopes up. That's it. It's pretty big.
Yeah. The good news about Daggerheart is there's a relatively small amount of content available for it at the moment. Right, that's certainly going to change now that they publish an SRD and that sort of stuff. But yeah, to do that one would be like a complete overhaul of the character sheet, right? It's a completely different system, right? Different attributes, not even D20 based. So like you literally change everything about what you're doing to do that one. Whereas some other systems are adjacent. Let's say they're still D20 based systems. Like, you'd want to do something like Shadow Dark or whatever, right? You're actually simplifying the existing character sheet, not doing something completely different. Or you wanted to do something like Pathfinder, then you're adding additional features just like we did for Black Flag, where it's like, okay, there's additional things beyond what the 5e uses out of a D20 system that are necessary. And Pathfinder honestly becomes less about, it's sort of like Black Flag, it becomes less about the features we add and more about getting a critical mass of content available for it, right? The good news about doing Black Flag is we were able to grow our content as the content for the game grew, right? Well, with Pathfinder, you're like, okay, there's literally hundreds of books out there right now. Where do we even start? Like, you have to start with the core guide, but nobody plays with just the core guide. Like, you got to have that plus how many, like, do we have to do 10 books to make it useful for people, or do we have to do 50 books to make it useful for people? And that's when we're debating whether to do Pathfinder or not. That's the core of the debate. So anyway, that's some of the things we're talking about on the horizon. But I'm going to circle back to like some of the near-term stuff we're doing and let Darren talk about some of the features he's already gotten in the queue for the new map and some other ideas we're kicking around.
Yeah, and I did have one other. It's sort of a question. I don't know if it's less of a question. It's more of it seems like a user concern that I did just find on the Facebook.
Yeah.
It was just someone, he said, I'm still getting used to it. The measuring tool target is a bit of a struggle. It creates a token that has to be deleted. Now, I don't want to respond because I'm not sure. Does it need to be deleted if you go to the next turn? Or is there anything where that naturally decays off of the page? Or does it need to be clicked on and removed?
It's a lot like those instant spells. It goes away when the turn advances.
Okay. I'll go ahead and let that person know that. I don't think, unless Shane is here in chat, I'll go ahead and just respond and let them know that. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, take it away, Darren.
Yeah, so we've had like a huge list of requests for the map control over the years, and many of them were just impractical to do with the previous design. And that's why this is really, you should think of this version as step 1, which is, we replaced the previous one in terms of functionality, and you got a few extra things just because of the new design and some of that. There's some areas that are kind of obvious extensions for what we've already done, and that we've done a lot of area of effect and spell work, but auras really aren't fully integrated in there. UI associated with conditions, whether it's, additional rings or additional graphical tokens are things that we're looking at on putting on top of those. There's also some more, make it prettier types of things. So for things like animated maps, animated tokens, those types of things.
Yeah.
That's also a good example of some of the areas that will likely have some challenges, in that animation is extremely CPU intensive, especially on phones. So,
Yeah, I know that from my Roll20 days.
yeah,
I was very excited to buy an animated map pack before it basically bricked my computer.
So, we will stay true to our, kind of core beliefs, right? Which is we want to be able to run efficiently on multiple devices and allow people to, engage with whatever their favorite device is while they're playing or while they're designing and do that. So, we'll try to find the right balance there that gives some of these prettier features without actually, making your computer, fan go ballistic the entire time you're playing.
Right. But don't get it wrong. Like, that doesn't mean we're not going to implement animated tokens or animated maps. It means, we'll probably have some settings for whether they're allowed or not, right? And bake some compromises, because I remember a day when because we started this tool as a playing in person sort of thing, we didn't think digital dice were necessary, right? And one of our players said, well, for people that don't want to use them, it doesn't hurt to have them, right? Like, they could not use them, they could still use, their physical dice in person or whatever else. And I went, yeah, that's right. And so, good news, we implemented digital dice. Same for animated tokens. There are people that go, oh, I don't need that. Great. Well, for those that do want them, we're going to make them available at some point, right? And so that's exactly the path we're headed here.
Yeah, and I know that it's specifically been brought up because, like, we brought over the Che and Piku maps, which are massively popular. One of the most popular TTRPG map makers out there. And instantly, I already got messages from folks who were like, hey, I'm on their Patreon. When are we going to get their animated maps? And
right.
So I will say, as the community manager who has to, like, I get hit with all these requests and I feel bad sometimes saying, no, we can't do that, or no, we don't have that yet. It does make me glad, because the reason people want those things is because they like using shards so much. Because if they didn't, they would go to any of the other VTTs that do allow you to use animated maps or that do have dynamic lighting, right? The fact that folks are asking for certain features or game systems tells me as someone, a user and someone who works with shard, that it's because folks like using it. So I try to remind myself of that.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
The maps are another the large scale. Like, I get a lot of questions about really large maps currently, and a lot of why our current tools kind of try to scale down maps is mostly about performance. If you put a 25 megabyte map on there, even on a high-end computer, it starts to become laggy very, very quickly from our experience. So one of the things that we will be looking at here in the near future is the ability to automatically tile and scale maps to have multiple versions. So this is a lot how, like, Google Maps and these types of things work, where they have different versions of them, and you can scale in and out, and it transparently switches between those in order to give you the most performant solution. So we do have that on the plan. With the new map control, we know how to do it. It's just a matter of working through kind of some of the details. Yeah. So these really high resolution, beautiful maps, we want to make it so that you can both have performance and experience those amazing maps.
Yeah. Yeah, we had another request. Someone said they would love to see on the map the ability to type, to add messages without having to add a pin. Because I said, well, you can just add a pin. And they're like, well, yeah, I know, but I know that's.
So this maybe connects to another area, which is we've kind of tried to be careful about going in and being the design a map tool. Right, there are great tools for building maps. It's like if we tried to be better map tool than that, then we would almost definitely fail because of all the other things that we're trying to do as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's already enough competition in that market with, Incarnate, Dungeon Fog, Dungeon
Yes.
Draft, and name your, 10 other tools that you know about to build a map with, and that sort
Yeah.
of stuff. We're like, that's not a market we want to be in,
Yeah.
right? So
At the same time, there are a lot of cases where you want to take an existing map and add a little bit on top of it, whether it's put some text on top of it, I want to add an image on top of it, these types of things. So one of the things in the plan is to be able to allow certain images or text to be attached to the map rather than to the encounter, which
Hmm.
is the way the existing solution works.
Yes. I know. I'm thinking of one specific publisher who they were really into the idea of adding rooftops to their city maps that could be moved. And we were able to get it to work. They just had to create, a pin to get it
Yep.
to populate with those rooftops. But
Yeah. So that is on there. Probably the biggest question I'm sure that people are curious about is, of course, dynamic lighting. Um, I don't know if we will do dynamic lighting the same as Roll20 or Foundry or some of these others. But at the same time, we do know that our current solution, while it gives a lot of control to the dungeon master, also puts a lot of additional burden in order to figure out what should be lit and what should not be lit and how is that. So we are going to do something there. I don't know exactly what it is. Once we get to that point, this will be an area that we'll need to get some feedback, because we do know that there is a wide spectrum of what people want, where all the way from I never want to see dynamic lighting to I won't use it without that being all singing and all dancing. And we want to cover a larger portion of that. I don't know if we're going to cover the full spectrum on top of that, just because there are other issues, both from a performance as well as um, play issues in terms of metagaming and some of the other things that comes once players get control over what's going on with what's visible and what's not, rather than game masters controlling that.
yeah. Yeah, I will say, on this point, like, I just hope folks out there know, like, we are listening and we do see, I've recently joked with folks. I was like, look, if folks want to know for sure, like, I read every single message. You can ask my wife, because she's always like, get off your phone. I read every single message that comes through our Discord, Facebook, Twitter, every page. So we see, that is one of the advantages, I think, of having the community that we do, is folks will let us know when they want something. And, I've seen Darren make changes within 15 minutes of someone putting in a request. So definitely keep the requests coming. Keep them coming, and I'll do my best to make sure these guys see it, and we'll continue to try and support that. So,
and I do read them all as well, all the feedback and the bugs and the requests and that. And some things are easy to implement or just broken, and I try to get those in as quickly as possible. Other things are more complicated and require a little more planning and connection. And some things, it's difficult to know exactly what to implement. And sometimes
those
those
are the ones he
end up
sends to
being.
me to figure out what it is the user actually wants.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. You're usually the source of me going, I don't know if I want to do it the way you asked.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly true.
I know
Just
we've
work done.
only got a few minutes left. Did you guys have any other closing thoughts? I mean, I know there's only a few folks in chat, but if anyone has any other questions, or Hal or Darren, if you have any like tidbits on what what 2025 might hold, the rest of the year, anything folks should be keeping an eye out for.
I think, continued improvements in the map, all the way up and including animated tokens and some version of dynamic lighting. Some version, I'd say, not the same as what everybody else has done, but some version of that are in the plans right now. And probably one other game system at some point, right? Which one we select, we're not sure yet. We don't have a final decision on, but we're definitely narrowing the field and looking at a couple different game systems. So if you have strong preferences on one game system or other, we may set up a poll here shortly that says, here are the ones we're considering. Which one would you love? All right, and we'll go from there. So
yeah. So the big thing I want to do is tell everyone thank you for all the people that are here and listening, all the people that watch, all the people that help make Shard what it is. There's no way we would have gotten where we are without feedback from our community. There are so many features that the community's come up with that are far better than anything that Hal or I thought of for doing it. There's scenarios that we haven't been aware of. It's just absolutely necessary for us to have the community in order to make Shard what it is, and we want to continue to kind of make it great for everyone in the community.
Yep. And one other thing you can give us feedback on is whether this format was useful, like whether doing these live streams on a periodic basis, like if we did another one in 2 weeks, what topics would you like to see us cover? What things would you like to learn about? What worked about this and what didn't work about this, right? Because this is an experiment for us too. Is like, hey, is this a good way to get out information and talk to people about new features and to answer questions and that kind of stuff? Obviously, we try to respond as quickly as we can between the three of us to the Discord content questions and that sort of stuff. Is this forum a good way to do it, right? In terms of getting things going.
And also, did the tool work, right? We've wanted to do this for years, but doing live streams is none of our primary expertise. So the logistics has been something that's gotten in the way, and we finally just said we're going to do it no matter what. So feedback on the logistics is helpful as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I think we'll sign off for the evening, folks. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
Yep.
Thanks
everyone.